of Tomorrow, Emerging Literary Talents of South Asia भनेर यसलाई नेपालीमा ठ्याक्कै अनुवाद गर्नुपर्दा भोलिको आवाज दक्षिण एसियाका उदाउँदा साहित्यिक प्रतिभाहरू भनेर हुँदो रहेछ। म यहाँ स्टेजमा यस प्यानलका प्यानलिस्ट र मोडरेटरलाई बोलाउन चाहन्छु। Allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists, Mr. Badri Narayan ji, Ranjan ji, Sumit Sharma ji, Mahendra Joshi ji. I'd like to request all of our panelists to come to the stage for the panel discussion. This session will be moderating by Professor Kamala Kanta, a renowned academic and critic who will steer this insightful discussion. Please join me in welcoming our panelist and moderator with a big round of applause as we begin this exciting conversation. Professor Das, we have 45 minutes. Professor Das, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon. May I request volunteers to request our audience who are there outside to join us. We'll be starting in a minute. So to start the session, thank you KLF for this opportunity. And in the third edition of KLF, there have been fascinating sessions here. In today's session, this session, we are talking about Voices of Tomorrow, आने वाले कल की आवाज, Emerging Literary Talents of South Asia. और उसमें हमारे साथ प्रोफेसर बद्री नारायण हैं, सुमित शर्मा जी हैं और महेंद्र जोशी जी आए नहीं हैं अभी, रंजन अडिगा जी हैं। तो हम वहीं से शुरू करते हैं। We'll start the discussion now. Just a brief introduction about the topic. Because given the challenges of technology, the society is changing very fast. And it is very well known, including literature, they all fall behind when society changes very fast. So we have esteemed panelists and experts who have reflective capacity and insight to guide us through and make us understand this complex journey. We have young people who are very interested in Instagram, bite-sized information, and literature to them is a boring subject. So if you say how the literary talents of tomorrow are going to emerge out of the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, those who are in their colleges, in the university, and those who are in the schools, they are our future. So we have three distinguished voices coming from three different traditions. Professor Badri Narayan is a social historian and anthropologist, understands social movements, politics, and its interaction with marginality. And we have Sumit Sharma, who is kind of an analyst who brings in politics, society, culture, history to all his understanding, and a fantastic writer who has also published books to his credit as an author and also a journalist. And also a young man, not so old, to understand how the Gen Z thinks. Now we have Ranjan Adiga, who is also an academic and also now an author, who brings in a different experience altogether, which is a diasporic experience, an experience from the far land. So we are going to have a chit chat and interaction with all three of them. Thank you for the opportunity. Here. My first observation of the topic is this: how are literary talents emerging? What is literary talent? If we look at literary talent of the Indian context, then we perhaps have to go back few centuries or few millennia back. So what is literature for us? Maybe Ramayana, maybe Mahabharata, the Vedic Bhaumaya, which is called the Vedic corpus of knowledge. The four Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, all those will be considered as classical literature, literary corpus. And that is a great tradition which goes on in the continuum till today. But with the onset of technology and people's intention of studying, memorizing, reproducing is not there anymore, because technology is doing it for you. In that context, will the kind of literary just Indian subcontinent and South Asia, around the world, will we have a Kallana, will we have a Valmiki, will we have a Kedarnath Singh or a Namvar Singh? So in that context, how are you looking at Gen Z as a literary talent who do not want to read a book which is more than 4 pages? उनका CV 1 पेज का है, और उनका about them, if you ask them, what are you? I am Gen Z. What do you want to do? I don't know. So with that uncertainty in their mind, and that confusion is natural. But instead of giving that lecture, I'm not a panelist, I'm a moderator here. I'm just setting the tone so that my 3 experts can take it from there, so that I stay stop and I do not speak. So one by one, they will take it forward. So question number 1, what do you think, how the literary talents are going to emerge, provided the context of how our education and pedagogy is changing and the way they're... Point number 1. Point number 2. Are we going to see the same kind of literature that we are looking at today in 20 years' time, or literature's definition and scope and view is going to change? Question number 3. Is there a conceptualization of South Asian literature where we can see that they are working across borders and perhaps reflecting their lived experiences and perhaps interacting with each other? Maybe festivals like Kathmandu KLF can facilitate that. What role academics, institutions will play in creating those literary giants or literary talents that we're looking at? And what is your experience when I come back to you, Professor Badri, Narayan, Ranjan Reddy, also a professor, and Mr. Sumit Sharma, who is a policy analyst also. When I come back to you, how do you see today's literary discussions, designs, and how does that impact society? So last thing, Sahitya, when you say in Sanskrit, someone said to me, Samam Hitam Bahubri Samas. So what does it mean? Everyone's hita is the well-being. Anything that can be able to, that has the ability or potential, that can empower everyone to have their own well-being. Which perhaps in English was said that literature is the mirror of society. Is that a mirror, a sociological mirror or a philosophical mirror? A sociological mirror says as is. It doesn't preach, it says, okay, society is as is. Philosophy would like to say to be. Thank you. So hopefully we'll take a discussion from there. Professor Badri Narayan first to respond to some of these things. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. first ball is always very difficult for batsman to play. No, so he moved ball towards me, but let me respond. Actually, yes, literature produces through time, so time too. Means a social time creates a condition in which literature emerges. But literature itself creates its own time. And yeah, our coordinator, our anchor is very right that in this situation, uh, when education, nature of education is changing, pedagogy is changing, social concern is changing. You know, two very important things happened in our age, in your age rather. We are too old from your means the young. One is 90s, means the implementation of neoliberal economy in India, and also it affected other part of the world, South Asia. So neoliberal economy in various parts of the world. And second is because of this neoliberal economy, the market, the aggressive growth of market appeared. And market is everywhere. What we call that writer in marketplace. Now we are in a marketplace. So this time, which is the time of the market, when literary creativity is getting day by day marginalized. But it does not mean that it is being marginalized. It is marginalized in substantial sense, but in symbolic sense, it is emerging as brand. You know, television, organize various kinds of poetry meet. It may be different kind of poetry, but they do. Literary fest, literary opportunity to reflect your views are growing day by day. Earlier, it was not possible that writer from Odisha or Bengal may come to Kathmandu to share the experiences or literary. Now it's possible because this is the positive of the neoliberal market, because it created a condition in which we can travel and we can come and share our literary experiences. So first thing is this, that implementation of neoliberal economy and aggressive growth of markets, that created a time, and in that time both kind of things are happening. One is symbolically literature is being important, because even in this time everything is losing its ethical value or credibility. State, politics, journalists, everywhere there is a question of doubt. Only writer is a community which is still, it has a credibility in the society. So if writer symbolically, if you are adding writer from with anything, with the market, with the brand, with anything, you will get importance, and that will work. So this market, but substantially, my question, I'm submitting question in reply of the question, that it substantially is helping us, or is providing a situation to re-explore ourselves creatively to create a great literature, as our anchor raised question. Uh, and why this is the time when we are not seeing a great literature, any Facebook literature, social media literature, everything has become captive of this kind of social media, market generated, the communication mode of communication. So here, because our anchor will take this discussion further, I'm submitting my argument with that So I'm summarizing. On the one hand, we are becoming symbolically brand important because of the market and neoliberal economy. On the other hand, substantially, we are eroding ourselves day by day, and our creative capacity is becoming day by day limited.
Thank you, Professor, for providing a little more broader context to that. We have been joined by Mahendra Joshi, sir. Welcome to the panel. So, Sumit Samit, sir, how do I call your name? So, Triple S. So, how do you see, given your policy experience, you have been to Canada, you have been to UK, you have been to India, you have experiences across continents, North America, Europe, and Asia. How do you look literary traditions being shaped by the present generation? There are several such movements happening around the world, whether it is war, violence, uh, movements for black rights in America, and several of them happening around the world. So, how do you see the present generation, Gen Z, responding to them in a literary way?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Kamalaji. I think that's a very interesting question. I, in fact, had an opportunity to interview Pulitzer Prize winning author Kai Bird, and I had asked the same questions to him, in fact. I asked, why is it so that your movie, Oppenheimer, became a blockbuster, in 2023 in Hollywood, despite it was written on 2006, despite it was written about one of the nuclear scientists who produced atom bomb, and despite not much of connection between today's generation with that character. Why is it that many young people flocked into cinema and theaters to watch that movie? So his simple answer was, I don't know. But later on, as I investigated, it's not that today's generation don't look for cinemas or literature, or they don't read that. They do. But they, I think, only read or watch outstanding cinemas or outstanding literature. Right? Today's generation has also watched Oppenheimer, and today's generation has also followed films like Bahubali. What was the reason behind it that they stayed there, glued there for 3.5 hours and watched that movie? Simply because movie was exceptional. It broke the prevailing trend of the society and tried to identify itself as something remarkable in the present context. So anything that is remarkable, anything that is something that you want to make a remark about, still can survive. But the writers and the producer got to make sure. That's my
I think very good example, because you took it to the cinema. So literature, essentially, very conventionally, we have looked at literature as printed material, books at one level. We have looked at syllabus in the master degree, undergrad, English literature, Nepali literature, Hindi literature, and anything which is not written, we have not given them literary status, which is the folly that human society has done. So literary, that is the purpose why Kalinga Literary Festival, it is not a literature festival, it is a literary festival. So literary is a process of human experience. So if you want to write everything, then only Wordsworth and perhaps all those people who have written and published, they will survive and they will be called as literature. So there will be no folk. Anyway, that folk language itself is a British colonial imposition that this is folk, this is mainstream. So anyway, so those are colonial strategies. So coming back to Sumit, connect of literature being art. So that is what I'm looking at. Whether
even Kamala, there's a best-selling books, right? Millions of copies of books are sold out, isn't it? So it doesn't have to be necessarily, only aligned with the cinema as an art. Books are also, fiction books are also sold, non-fiction books are also sold out. My only point is that we cannot sold or push the same old ways of writing and then expect people to read our work unless we try to add extra layers of values into our work. That work would sort of solve the issues of society as well so that larger population can relate to it. If your work is relatable to the larger audience, I think they'll still buy, they will still read.
Right. It's a long discussion because we have short time. We'll come back to you quickly. There is a saying, because I was studying in JNU, that students who buy Hindu newspaper, they're intelligent students. They don't read it. But you have to show that you're buying Hindu. Hindu helps you getting civil services, into the civil services. So that is kind of something that people buy. So is that a tradition that people are buying books and keeping it in themselves, or they're reading and engaging? That's another matter, not to discuss now, but later. So, Ranjan Adigji, you are someone who has brought a nuanced picture to the diasporic experience. I think your first collection of stories, Leech, is a very important book, and people should read it. It is available outside. I also have got a copy. I'll show it to you. And what is your take, apart from introducing your book? I have a last session. We'll have everyone's book. We'll be showing. And what is your sense of looking at today's people and their reading habits, and perhaps training the next generation of literary talents? Yeah, over to you. Quick question.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a really interesting question. I don't think I would jump to generalize today's generation as one thing. I think we should start with acknowledgement that the generation itself can be very diverse and very varied. Thank you.
So it's everyone.
Available outside, by the way, if anyone's interested to buy it.
Yeah.
I also think it's a myth to think that today's generation, Gen Z, is not reading as much, because while their attention span may have reduced a lot, I also think that they're now exposed to different kinds of narratives, and they're growing up with, digital media and shows on Netflix and what have you, and books, and alongside books, various other forms of narratives. I mean, I'll give you an example of my son, who is 10 years old, but he's completely into watching, superhero stuff. And his vocabulary has already increased. He talks about protagonists, antagonists, heroes, conflicts, war zones. These are literary terms that I didn't have to teach him because he's exposed to different kinds of narratives online and digital media. So I think while it may be true that their attention span has reduced, I also think that through social media, they have an increased awareness of storytelling. If you're putting yourself out on social media, what you're doing is you're telling a story about yourself. And so their talent or instinct to tell stories, I think, has risen a lot. So I wouldn't say that today's generation is not reading as much. Literature has always struggled to find its audience. Literary work, if we're talking about Nepal, for instance, English reading population in Nepal, English reading literary population in Nepal is probably less than 1%. So it has never been, like we were talking about films, it has never had the mass appeal of movies. So literature has always struggled to find its audience. But, like you were saying, if it's good work, it will find its audience. And in fact, I think what today's generation has done is, in a way, I was reading an article in the New York Times about a writer. Her name is Colleen Hoover, and she came up with a novel called Slammed last year. And she didn't have an agent, she didn't have a publisher. She self-published her novel, and then she put it out on social media. And on TikTok, someone saw it, and it became viral. And the next thing you know is that she became a best-selling author. So while it's true that attention spans may have dropped down, today's young generation has also found new ways of marketing their books. And so the traditional gatekeepers that have existed probably in some sense, and I know her story was an exception and not everyone's story will be as smooth as hers, but some of the traditional gatekeepers maybe don't have the same kind of cultural currency that they had 15, 20 years ago. So while we can be pessimistic and gloomy about today's generation not reading as much, I think we can also look at it from a positive angle and look at the different opportunities that are available to them.
Thank you so much. I think I started pitching it as a pessimistic viewpoint of whether the today's generation is actually reading, or they're showing potential to be literary talents. So I think what Ranjan Adigji is bringing is a positive hope, saying that people are doing it all alone on their own without going through the publication process even. And that is how technology is helping them. It's a very good thing. So over to Mahendra sir. How do you see the same question? That is one. Because you are a published author, we all, when we write and publish, we have an expectation that people will read and review, get back to us, because this is a fruit of hard work and labor, right? Intellectual labor. And that labor is satisfied when people engage with it. At one commercial level, that books are to be sold. At another level, intellectual level, a professor like Badri would be happy if his ideas are taken forward and discussed and engaged with. Some people might agree completely or disagree or whatever, but engaged with, at least. That is why these creative people think that way. So how do you see the current generation engaging with whatever you have written, whatever you have said, whatever you have been, whatever you have published?
Thank you, sir. It's a wonderful pleasure being here at Kalinga Literary Festival. This is the biggest I have ever been. So I will be talking about my book and then get to sir's question. Okay, when I ended up writing, actually, I got my education from the USA. I went there for my graduate degree. And like after completing my graduate degree, I thought like I need to enhance my writing. So I took a diploma course in cinematic writing. And over there, like they told us like we can write books. For that, we have to submit them 2 chapters. All right. I mean, if that is good, they were going to help me out. And then I thought like, okay, I will write something that is new for them. Because if I just write about America, being in America is not going to make sense much. So I wanted to connect Nepal. And like connecting Nepal, like is again a very broad term. So I wanted to connect rural Nepal. So I gave a name Rolpa. And if you happen to check where is Rolpa, is one of the impoverished region in Nepal. So I came with the title Rocking Rolling Rolpa. So it just gives the positive connotation, right? So and then Americans, my target was to hit Americans so that because Sir rightly mentioned in Nepal, we have less than 1% who tends to read books in English. But I want to get that 50% of 1% that will get my job done. So for that one, I need to make a character that will touch them. So over here, the protagonist in this particular book, the character named Josh is only 21 years and he's traveling. This is what the genre that most of the students like and the new generation whom I've targeted this. So how do I connect? So I just wanted to use like the 40% content to USA and then the remaining 60% to like there is 10% in Kathmandu and there 50% is in Rolpa, and they will just get this cultural differences also because I mean talking from the marketing point of view also what sells in Nepal. I don't know about India, but in Nepal is America sells a lot because American dream is very high in Nepal. So I thought like, okay, this will get you acquainted to America and like you'll get to know about your rural part of your own country, Nepal. So this has been my marketing strategy. So after this, like this started getting attention from college students because I used to do a lot of session, like going there and promoting my book and then why they should read the book. And I am thankful to more than 100 colleges all over Nepal, like who actually helped me out on this one. Otherwise, like this book has never got this scenario which I'm getting right now. So like once they got this book, I was just waiting because I just left the book open-ended and I was a little reluctant whether I should write the next book or not, but I was getting so much of like I had left my email address and all, they want the second part. So after that, after 2 years of wait, I ended up writing this one. This is actually the sequel of my first book, Rocking Rolling Rolpa, Foolproof. And over here now, I consider myself as an emerging writer after the success of my first book. So second book, I just thought like, okay, this time I have to do something different. Like it's like this is filled with humor, and like the content is pretty much easy, I would say. But over here, I blended the content so that I can be a change maker in some way. I talked about the education in rural Nepal, the stigmas and taboos associated with women, and like divorce and polygamy and all those, and without losing much essence. So this is how things happen good for me, and like people are getting noticed. Like in India also, my book is in Flipkart and all those. Like every once in a while, if I get a review, I just check the location where I'm getting this review from. If it's outside Nepal, wow, I'm doing a good job. So this is how the journey has been.
Thank you. I think that's an incredible story, because taking Nepal to USA and bringing USA to Nepal, and that kind of interaction, and saying that there are cultural exchanges happening in that, and making a novel instead of giving it a story or a documentary style presentation. So those stories are important, storytelling. Coming back to our first panel expert, Badri Narayan sir, you have written several books, manuscripts, and when his CV was sent to me, it ran more than 45 pages. So you have done a lot of work. How do you see the academic publishing world at one level? And second, while you have written these several path-breaking work in marginality and democracy, recently you have written, I'll just like to show some of his books. He wrote this book, Fractured Tales, Invisibles in Indian Democracy. And recently he has published Republic of Hindutva, How the Sangh is Reshaping Indian Democracy. Earlier, he wrote Women, Heroes and Dalit Assertion in North India, Culture, Identity and Politics. And Kansiram, who is perhaps the most iconic figure of Dalit politics in India. So he wrote his book. So all from good publishers. Do you look at your level of love to be appreciated at one level? And second, how does it inspire or influence you to write your next book? Are you keeping in target to the next generation as your readers?
I think very good question. I used to say that when you end one book, you open the gate for another book. Where you end one book, your next book start from there. And second is here I will take a statement of the Foucault. He says that we just open the door in the walls. By writing books, we don't create wall, but create a window in the wall to see the world. So these two things. When I came in Indian academics, that was the time of 90s, and it was a very positivism dominant time. And it was very difficult to publish a book which have a story element in academics. Academics means you have to write very rigorous positivist kind of research, data and So when we came, we subverted that art of telling social science, and we tried to bring stories, narratives, and that was the time when postmodernism started emerging, and that helped us to break this oppressive narrative, positivist narrative of telling social science. And the publisher at that time, great publisher, Oxford, Sage, they are all dominated by this positivist mode of publishing the books or understanding the social science. So they usually throw out this kind of manuscript before that. If you send one a small instance, I will narrate. I was in an IIS Shimla as fellow, and I wrote a first book of mine that was documenting dissent, contesting fables, contested memories, and Dalit political discourse. When I wrote this book and I sent to the Sage was a big publisher in Delhi. When I sent mail, I received very good mail from them. No, please send us, it's very interesting, we'll publish it, like that. When I sent the manuscript, just after 3 days, manuscript returned back, because I couldn't understand what happened. And that book published by IIS Shimla. After 5-6 years, I went to Glasgow to deliver a lecture. And one person came to me, I am admirer of your book documenting dissent. Why don't you write for us for my series in Sage? And that was the Simon Charles, who was the the lead editor of the that series. I said that said this book to you, and your series returned this book to me. So within 10 years, the entire narrative of social science has changed. So now they are very much eager to publish the semi-academics books, means academics with life meanings, life stories, the कहते हैं ना जीवन की ताप जिसमें heat of the life. So we in our research we mostly do go to villages, collect stories, collect various kinds of narrative, and write books like this. Anecdotal. And your last question, I'll take 1 or 2 minutes. How it is affecting the? You are very rightly said that you need to engage. Whether you when my this book came, Fascinating Republic of Hindutva, I received enormous admiration of this book. Criticism. Lot of people started saying so much, very bad thing about me. Someone said that I'll kill you. Someone said like this, and they're very eminent people. So one book can create a situation in which you may produce lot of admirers, as at the same time, maybe it's possible from that book only you can produce so much many critics, and publishing world in today's time is unfortunate that publishing world is shrinking, especially in the social science or academic publication world. Very Sage has closed its office from India. Oxford is also shrinking. Routledge is still there. So this is concern of the readers and the also author to think how to write so that read the academic things and academic book become very popular.
Thank you. As the time is very short, we'll go quickly for Sumit and then come back to Adigji. Sumit, you wrote Wake Up Ali few years back. And what is your next project? In that project, do you think about the next generation to be a reader? If for example, we say author should not think about who is my reader, whatever is creatively coming, we should bring it out. But if it is published but no one reads, that concern remains. Yeah, as a writer.
Right. So I'm really not thinking about if my book is going to be read or not, honestly, because I'm thinking about I'm writing something.
I know you're writing a book, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm writing something that's important for me. I'm writing something that's I believe on. Speaking truth out of my heart, whether it's been liked, disliked, my problem. But what I'm really trying to do is like I'm trying to capture 75 years of history of Nepal's socio-political cultural evolution with 3 generations of a single Nepali family. So I hope that the readers of my generation and the readers of the next generation would like to read the history and culture of our own country, and they might feel relatable. So I think so. But my fundamental thing is that I would be writing for myself and not for audience.
Ranjan, Adigji, what is your next book project? You can be secretive, not open it, but anyway. Yeah.
So my book just came out this year. So
2024. Yeah.
Yes, it's too early. I'm just really tired, just like having this book out, and I'm really. So I haven't actually started my second project, but it will be a novel because my first book is a book of short stories.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to write a longer form, a
Thank
novel.
you. What's your next book project? Quick answer. if you can.
My next book is currently like after my book Foolproof got good accreditation because of its suspense. So I'm writing a suspense story, but for that one I'm doing a lot of research by reading a lot of suspense novels and reviewing. I get books from novice writers and give their reviews. So from there I'm actually learning. So my next book, I don't have like much like a name and nothing in my hand, but the theme is going to be suspense, and this time I'm not going to sell America this time. So it's going to be something related to Nepal and something I can.
So what's next
feel
project,
easy.
sir, for you?
I'm working to write a book on making of new Ayodhya. Ayodhya is constructed. So it will be a book of the city in the making, and also how religion, tourism, and mixing each other to remake a city. So that book, I'm working on that.
Thank you. On that note, we'd like to say thank you to all our panelists, Mahendra sir, Sumit, Badri Narayan sir, and Ranjan ji, for a brief discussion on the next generation of talent in the literature, who are our readers. If you don't read, you can't write. So not many, maybe like in the ancient times in Odisha, there is a Kavi known as Bhima Boy. He was not well read. He was not at all well read. He was uneducated. He is a fantastic poet now. He's celebrated around the world. But today's world is, if they don't read, they cannot understand what is happening. So with an optimistic note that people are reading and our experts are producing material for their pleasure, happiness, learning, and wisdom.
ड्यासमा आसीन सम्पूर्ण वक्ताहरू र सहजकर्ताज्यूलाई हार्दिक धन्यवाद व्यक्त गर्न चाहन्छु। अब भने मायाको चिनो प्रदान गरिदिनु हुन म इलिया भट्टराईज्यूलाई स्टेजमा निम्त्याउन चाहन्छु। After the token of love session, please wait for a few seconds for the photo session. I would like to thank all the dignitaries at this stage. Thank you so much for the wonderful session.